Hi everybody, welcome back. Well, hopefully this is not a video that's as, how can I put it, schizophrenic as all the other ones, or the last two at least. Because the whole thing is, I'm trying to finish up the front end of this car. I left the rally lights on just for some sanity because I can walk into the shop and look at it and go, oh yeah, it kind of looks like a rally car now. All right, get your motivation back up. But what we're going to try and do is finish the front end. Now, as you saw in the last two videos, I started on one thing, had to go to another. Started on one thing, had to go to another. All right. The reason is it's equilibrium. If you take like 2 jugs of water and you put a hose in between the two, what will happen? They will eventually find their equilibrium. Each one will be the same exact, height because of the pressure. Now, what it is that when I, do the bump, I do the fenders, and now I say, oh, I got to do the bumper now. Oh, now I got to go back and do the fenders. I got to do this intake. I got to do that intake. I got to do, that's making equilibrium. And hopefully, all the mistakes that you see me make, because I'm sure you'll pick them out. That way, when you do your cars, you'll say, oh, I'm going to start with this, and it'll save you some time. That's kind of the goal here. And I want you guys to build all these things. We can all go out and just have a hell of a time, Go to the bar, come home, a bunch of rally lights on. All right. It's like, well, it's kind of hillbilly driving, but it's kind of frowned upon now, but whatever. Other than that, what I want to do first is I want to tackle the hood pin, and it'll also be part of the light adjuster and all that stuff on this side. This is the hardest part. This is the hardest one. Because we also have to make sure there's space we can pull this elbow out and service the car. That's the thing. But let me first go grab my impact gun, let me pull the lights off, and then we'll go right over here and I'll show you my idea on how I'm going to do this. How can I put this? Hopefully it'll work out. I think it will. So, yeah. All right, let me go get my impact gun. Here on the right side, worst side's going to be in the entire video. This is probably going to be the worst thing. What it is, and the only reason why it's going to be the worst thing is this. This has to be pulled out and put back in a 20-minute service. That's my goal. So what do I have to do? Well, I want to do a couple things with that mount that I'm putting in. The first thing is it's going to stabilize this, and it's going to create a section right here to adjust this headlamp with the same bolt system that we use down here. Then it's going to curve around, have the hood pin locked in, you're going to weld it to the chassis. But the big thing is we have to be able to get this thing off, and the harder thing will be getting it back on after this is all squared away, because we have to make sure that this thing pulls off, gets back on, and you're not going to have to remove the headlamp. No, that's not in the equation. We have to figure out what is the best way to do this, and to create a stiffness in there, and then tie it into the chassis and make sure the hood, it tied in well enough into the chassis so the hood, if you hit something, won't fly up and crash through the windscreen. So, but other than that, all pretty easy. I think. All right, I got some all threaded rod. Let's figure out where our hood pin is actually going to rest, and then we'll figure out if the metal I got is going to work. All right, we have it pretty much level with the fender. Not perfect, but it's close enough. I have the all threaded rod right here. This is where the hood pin wants to rest. Our problem is this, and we have to adjust that, the headlamp. And we have to make a curve to go here. So I was looking through the trash pile again, and what did I come up with? Well, handy dandy Eurovan seat parts. This is one of the parts that we cut out. And take a look. It has a nice bend right here. So if you look at where everything is going to be, where the hole would have to be, this thing sets up almost exactly correct. And it has a corner or a curve to curve around this. Is it going to be enough? I don't know. The best thing is we got to have to figure out how it's going to work and how the curve is going to work for us, to give us enough room. That's the big thing. First thing I got to do, I'm just going to make this straight. I'm just going to cut it straight off like right here, and then we'll start fitting it in and seeing where where this curve will give us the most amount of lee room or leeway to turn this elbow off and to put it back on. That's my thing, and then we'll trim it. We'll drill a hole for this and start trimming up the entire piece in order to make it work. And I that's some pretty cool things to show you how I'm going to fix the hood pin. It's pretty neat. So first things first, let me open this back up, get my garb on, and start cutting this up. Well, if we go right there, let's say we go right here, we can bring this down, weld it in. What this does is this gives us the ramp that goes down there, which is pretty cool. But we don't have enough material on this side, and I don't want to bring, I would if I have this. I don't want to cut that off because if I go right here, it intrudes too much with the elbow. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a small piece of metal that I'm going to weld onto the back of this. I'm going to put a hole in there. Put a hole in it. Put it right here, clamp it. Then go up here, put this right there so we have tons of room to get this thing out. Then we can weld it right to the back. And hopefully this will be lined up close enough to the hood pin to where we can actually put in a capture system for the hood pin. And it gives us tons of room over here for this. At least that's what it looks like right now. But let me first go get a small piece of metal so I can drill a hole in it, and then I can bolt it to this and then see exactly how everything's going to work. And then we'll put the hood down and do the hood pin to see exactly if that's going to work too. Now we have to put structure into the system right here because this is just flopping around like a rabbit ear. More Eurovan parts. Got to determine what it is. I'm going to put this right here, like that. But I need to get this pretty much level and straight all the way across. This is level and straight. This right here is pretty much on exactly where I want it. You know, got to fix the rest, but that way I can weld it right here, and this is very, very, very stable. Now, I'll clean up inside and weld that. That way we have this squared away, and then I'll finish up the hood pins. All right, well, pieces in, pretty stable. As you can see, I missed the tab for the lights. And I want this tied in, because I want to get rid of this right here. I think I'm just going to use this piece. I'm going to trim it down, and that way it looks like it's still part of here. It'll give me the bend to make it look like it was supposed to be factory, but I can trim this piece off right there, and it'll be fully welded right there and be fairly strong, because I'll weld it right into here. Trim this down, give me more room for the elbow. So pretty much, let me grab my stuff and start cutting. This is what you get. You guys are gonna run into this. Trust me, you guys are gonna run into it. Melt in, pretty much it's where it is. It's, you know, compression wise, it's very stiff, but you can still wobble a little, you know, move it back a little bit. You can see this section right here is moving on the chassis. So what do I want to do? Well, I kind of want to try and stiffen it up. I'm going to take one of the table, this is a table leg that I used for the mount for the original part. All I'm going to do is just cut it, triangulate the base on this, then take another section of this rod, put it right here, triangulate that. That way, that's a very stiff structure. I'm going to try and increase the stiffness and give me a little bit more room on the elbow by scribing this little piece of sheet metal down here, cutting it and bending it over to make, you know, an angle. It just increases the stiffness of this section right there. I'm trying to do everything I can to make this thing as rigid as possible, so the light doesn't bounce around and the fender doesn't bounce around. Let me warm up the tools and, you know, put my mask back on, and let's make this work. All right, it's fairly warm. Don't want to touch it. What it is, it's pretty stable right now. I'm not going to put the hood pins in just yet. The mount, I'm going to show you that. But let's go over to the other side. You know what? I saw a design feature that I kind of screwed up on. Not screwed up on, but I looked at it going, you know what? I could do something better. So let's go do the other side. Is it more complicated? Yeah, it's more complicated, but you know, what the hell? It's like, why not? All right, let's go do the other side. Here we are on the driver's side. What do we have to do? Well, same thing over there. We have to have the top mount for the light, and we have to have the plates for the hood pin. All right, that's pretty easy. Over there, we had to have clearance in order to have the elbow get picked, you know, to put in and put out of the turbocharger, or, you know, pull off or put on the turbocharger. Now, what we have for a third item here is to have the power steering reservoir. We just don't want it to conflict with the grill. So that's pretty easy, but the whole thing is, I want to use a bar. This is the bar that, another Eurovan seat part. I want to use the bar to come over to here so I can easily put a piece of ducting on the radiator to go right to this side so all the air goes into the radiator. That's kind of a big thing of mine. And then I'm going to, have another bar over here, the other part of this maybe, right here in order to just not impede the airflow, because this piece right here, I'm looking at it and it's just, if it's forcing air this way, even if it hits the ducts, it's going to eddy. So, you know what? Screw it. I have to weld it anyway, so I might as well make a purpose-built type of scaffolding, over to here so I can make this all work, That's kind of it. It's not that bad, and I can get rid of all of this metal and make it, and put a little bit beefier metal in there, because this thing is, just like that over there, kind of wobbly. But let me start trimming this stuff all out, because we need this section right here. This is the only section we need, and I'm just gonna cut this out, take this all off, and then we'll reset the hood pins. So at least that's what I think I'm gonna do. We have the hood pin mount set in position where it's going to be. Tacked over here, welded, all right there. It's not moving anyway. It's really stiff. It's thick steel. And now we have to make the adjuster mount right here. So you're probably wondering, what are you going to use? Well, it's like anything. And just like, this is what you guys are going to have to do is whatever you cut off, you throw into a little box. And this is the same thing as like on that one over there, I cut this off right here, this curved piece, and I was looking at it going, wow, if I put this right on here, it's a little bit further out so I can cut it, bend this section straight down, drill a hole in it, and put the M6 bolt with a nut on it, and it should go right there. I mean, with the washer, it should be fine. And that way we can use this as an adjuster, and we don't have to do, we're just slightly modified. So that's how I think about things, because I look at everything around and just say, okay, what can it be used for, or what I need it to be used for. I'm going to go drill a hole in this thing first, and I'll come back and I will start using my air tools to cut it, because they're a lot more precise. I can control where they are compared to the big grinder. The big grinder is just, hack and slash. That's all it is. All right, let me go drill a hole in this. I'll be back, and so we can start manipulating or modifying this little piece of metal to make it work there, hopefully. All right, right. Okay, there we go. The power steering reservoir is in. There's a reason why I did it here. First thing is, I wanted to make sure it was higher than the pump so we can get a gravity feed in. Big thing. Second thing, as you can see, let me pull it back out. This is where it is, and you can see where the angle of where the hose will come off of it. Well, I needed to miss this rod right here, and I also needed to have an expansion possibility with the radiator to double the size of the radiator, and this should still easily miss it. And a third thing, one thing when you're at a rally, and you're out in the east middle of nowhere, and you need a power steering reservoir hose, guess what? If you have a special bend in a hose and all this other stuff, you know, it's hard to find. If you have a hose set up where it's just a piece of straight hose, you can use heater hose. You know, who cares? You can have anything to go to there to get you down and get you to the end of your rally. You know, so you want the easiest things possible, as in wearing parts. That's that's a big thing. So I know that I can go to any hardware store if I need to and get some straight hose without any bends and a couple of hose clamps, and it'll last 24 hours. And I'm usually done with a rally, you know? So, pretty much it, and yeah, whatever. The other good thing is, I set the height, and this height is right at maximum level. So I can actually look and see, oh, okay, well, we need this, because there's gonna be a piece of ducting right here anyway for this hose to go through. But that's pretty much it. Next thing is we gotta do the grill. In order to do the grill, we got to reset the intercooler because the intercooler was at a slight angle. I had to cut the pipe in order to bring it, back up. Let me just cut that mount off right now. I'll pull the bumper and we'll reset the height of the intercooler. Then we'll get on to making all the tabs for the grill, and then we'll get on to putting the funny things I found, or the cool things I found to put the hood pins in. I think you're gonna like that. So let's first let me pull the bumper off. I'll cut the tack off of that mount, and we will redo it. All right, now I can set the intercooler. I put hose clamps on the bottom there, and on these two hoses to lock it in, and a sheet of, what is this? Looks like 5/8 plywood to make sure, new belt, make sure the belt goes down there and I can get it off really easy. Next thing is I'm gonna weld the mount down. Actually, let me show you what I'm gonna use for this mount right here on the intercooler. Then I'm gonna weld the mount down there, and I'll weld this in, lock it in, and then we're gonna put the grill in. We're here at the intercooler. All right, we need to do one thing right now. We need to stop the intercooler on the top from moving forward into the engine and backwards into the bumper so the hoses don't blow off. I put clamps on the hoses. I put clamps on the hoses down there to make it stationary, and it's sitting exactly where I want. I just don't want to touch it. I have the line. It's basically parallel all the way across here. It's pretty good. What it is that I have to make a mount from the alternator. Well, I want it from the alternator bracket to here. What am I going to use for a mount? Well, I'm going to take a page out of Audi's book. This right here is a mount that came on the 4000 Quattros, Quattros, most of that stuff. And what it is, it went to the radiator and then went to the front sheet metal, the crossing sheet metal on the Quattro. And they had these. These are rubber isolators. They had one on one end and one on the other. What does this do? Well, it just isolates the vibrations from the metal structure to the copper radiator. That's all it did. Or it just lessened them. And that's the whole thing, is I'm just trying to lessen the amount of vibrations because, steel versus aluminum, steel wins. What am I going to use for a mount? Well, I think I'm going to chop this thing up. What is it? This is a stiffening rib for the cam cover, but this is for like a 1.6 diesel Volkswagen. Am I ever going to build another Volkswagen diesel 1.6? Probably not. It's like, yeah, I'm good, but that's beside the point. What I'm going to do is just I'll cut this thing up, so basically triangulate it and support the structure and weld it onto the alternator mount. while using an isolator onto here. And I also have to have a tab on here in order for it to accept it. Now, where am I going to get that tab? Right here is the bottom portion of the Eurovan intake manifold that we use the top, throttle body assembly on this motor. What it is we have tabs on the sides right here. They're already threaded, and they're threaded straight, which I sometimes have a problem with. It goes right in, and what I'm going to do, I have to cut the aluminum anyway, so I'm just going to cut this tab off, put it on here, and weld it. That's it. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. I'm just going to recycle that and recycle this, and hopefully it'll all work. So let me get my stuff on to chop that up, clean it up. Same thing, clean this thing up, and we'll bring the TIG, slide this thing over to the TIG welder, and then get this thing all squared away. Well, this is on. It's lightweight. What's it doing? Preventing it from going back and forth. That thing will, that pipe right there, basically it won't go forward, blow off. This right here, this pipe is clamped. This thing will not go this way. This pipe won't blow off. At least that's what my plan is, or my theory. All right, next thing is we have to get the grill on, which means I'm more fiberglass cutting. And let me show you what I'm going to use for the top mounts. I have an idea what I'm going to use for the bottom mounts. I'm not sure yet, but we have to first fit the grill. Plus I got the surrounds that I'm going to use for this car, the headlight surrounds. I found, the two worst, and I'll show you the reason why they're the worst. And, what am I doing? Yeah, I'm going to go get the grill. All right, I'm going to get the grill. There's the grill. These are the surrounds that I'm going to use. This right here is a good surround. How do I tell it's a good surround? Well, on general condition, everybody's going to look at it. Oh, chrome's good, paint's still there, that reflector's still, yeah, that's good. But the main thing I really look at, and a lot of people kind of miss, is this right here. This little hook hooks into the fender and keeps the surround locked to the fender, basically. Besides this right here, which is a screw hole place, where they put a small screw in to lock it in. This and this are the big things to look for, because people usually either over tighten this and snap it, or they pull the thing off, ham fist it off, and it breaks this off. That's a big thing. So when you're looking at these surrounds, they're really a lot of money now. So if you're going to do that, make sure those two pieces are good. And other than that, it's pretty easy. The paint's easy to redo. The chrome is not. But if it's if you're having to spend money for them, all right, make sure those are good. Why am I? Here's the ones that I have. All the chrome's pitted, really bad, broken tabs, broken everything. So I have no problem cutting these things off. What I got to do is I got to put these on here to figure out exactly where I can center the grill. I might have to cut these. I really don't. I want to wait that to the very, very end. But if I have to, I will cut them long. you know, but I don't want to. I don't want to cut them at all to fit it, but if I have to, I will. First things first, I'm gonna put the, set the surrounds up, mark them where they're going to be, and then we'll start centering the grill and figuring out where we're gonna have to slice into the grill to clear the intercooler. The top doesn't have to be, but the bottom does. And then we gotta start making the mounts for the grill so it doesn't fly off. Because they do have a nasty tendency right here. The air goes over it, creates a low pressure spot, and it kind of lifts up like that. It's like you don't want that. So, all right, let me get my marker on and mark that up. Then we'll figure out exactly where the grill's going to be, and I'll get my garb on and start slicing. Then we're going to make them out. Well, I think that's set. I'm going to show you what I'm going to use for the hinges next because we're going to weld them off of these plates right here. All right, the first mounts that we have to do, I need to attach them to the top. And, we need to attach to the bottom and the top, but the first thing I have to do is attach them to the top. What am I going to use? Well, these are more of the mounts for the A-pillar cross beam section, crash section, knee protection, whatever you want to call it. But these are either in a, they were in a Mark III or a Passat or a Corrado or something like that. Don't remember which one, but this is, I just think they're kind of cool. And why is that? Is because this plate is folded over, and when you put two bolts in there, it clamps it really, really tight, and it'll give you a lot of surface area on this fiberglass grill to lock it in. This is going to be for the other side, and this is going to be for this side because this is a smaller distance to go right here. What I'm going to do is just modify this. Cut it, slice it, put it down, and then I will weld it to this point right here. I'm going to take these nuts off, but I'll do that. And one thing you have to do with these, you see how this is square? They're not like that. They're like this. They're just folded over and they're put into some really thin sheet metal and they're clamped down. I made it square like that because of the thickness of the fiberglass. It goes in and it goes right to the very edge is what it does. Right here, it goes right to the edge. That way it's not very obtrusive. If you use it originally the way this is for the other side, it goes right here and you got at least 8 millimeters out like right here. But what I have to do is make this thing square like I did that. Let me just bring you over to the vise. Let me show you exactly what it is because it takes a second and a half, and that way you get a mount that goes all the way down. That's kind of a cool thing. Let me go show you what it is. This is what I use to make this not crush the fiberglass and to make it fit flush. What is it? Piece of angle iron. Nothing special. The only thing is I looked around to find one that was the thickness of the fiberglass or close to it. I mean, you kind of want it more than the thickness of the fiberglass so it slides in then clamps down. That's kind of what this is. So all you do is you put it right here and tap it. Well, there's your receiver for the fiberglass. Let's go drill some holes, make this fit. Well, I think that's centered. So I'm just going to tack that in and right there, and we'll go from there. Well, that's pretty tight right there, but we are still going to make a bottom mount. It's going to be right here. Let me bring the camera over and show you that. Here's the bottom of the grill. What I want to do is I want to make a mount off of here. Seeing how this used a 10 millimeter or M6, I'm going to use the same thing on the bottom. Is exactly what I want. So what I'm going to do is there's a block I put underneath here to keep the height of the bumper. I'm going to come off of that block underneath this grill, drill a hole, and then weld it to the block, and that will be our main point. So this grill will not go anywhere. It won't flop up. It won't do anything. So it'll be completely set. Let me show you what I got to do this with, because I think it's kind of cool. This is what I have for a mount. What is it? It's the lower part of a window that was broken off. It was a broken window from the lower half of the rally car. What it is, you know, you're probably going to say, why would you save something like that? Well, you save it for two things. First thing, for the channel, because sometimes you can put a piece of fiberglass or a piece of metal in there, drill a hole, put a bolt on the bottom, and then it just squeezes tight, which is pretty cool. Second thing is this plate right here, it's flat. And doing the fiberglass, what it is, I got plenty of material either side. I can put it anywhere I want. And if you use an M6 with a big flat washer, it goes down there and it won't crush the fiberglass as bad. Because, you know, metal on fiberglass is always going to crush it, but you try and decrease the amount of force on it, or distribute the amount of force on it as much as possible. And it's really not a heavily strained, you know, point that we're putting on the grill, but it's still enough force that I think it warrants a mount. All right, let me cut this up. I'm going to cut out the spot welds and cut it in half, and have two more mounts to do the grill. And I think the grill will all be done, and then we'll continue moving back. All right, we're gonna do the hood pins next. That's what we're gonna do. Then I think I'm gonna fit the side bezels like this, and because I was gonna do a couple things back here and then finish up the episode, but I just realized I can't, because I gotta do other things in the chassis in order to bring them forward, in order to determine exactly what we're gonna use in the front. You know, it's one of those things, we're moving back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So, all right, well, let's do this. Let me show you what I have for the hood pins. Then I am going to do the side things right here, the side bezels. Put this all in, get it all completed in the front so it all looks good. So that way you guys have an idea of what I'm doing to actually make this stuff work. That way you can get on with your stuff. You can just figure it out, and if you like what I do, you like what I do. If you don't do it. But at least it gives you an idea which way to go. First things first, let me grab the old hood pins that were in this, and let me show you what I'm going to do. This is what we have to put in. Well, we have to put two of them in. But what I'm going to do is, one of the things, this is a standard hood pin. You get them from round places, you know, Circle Track, race supply shops, 4x4 shops, stuff like that. And they're generally made with American threads because they're usually made in America. You know, I mean, it's just an inexpensive piece of steel they thread it out. So what I had to do, I wanted to look to find out what thread pitch it was. You know, so I took my caliper and I put it right here. And it's like 11 millimeters, which is 7/16 inches, you know, in American speak. It's like, you know, there's a lot of wrenches you can go out there and just barely put on a standard wrench onto a metric wrench, but a 7/16 will always fit on an 11 millimeter, you know, nut. Same thing, vice versa. An 11 millimeter will always fit onto a 7/16. You never have a problem. Now, people say, well, what about ½ inch? Well, ½ inch will sometimes fit and sometimes not, depending on the clearances. The ½ inch is definitely smaller than a 13. One little tip. If you have a 13 that's kind of rusty or rounded a little bit, take the ½ inch wrench with the box end, not the open end, and you pound it on with a hammer. That way it seals itself on and you can sometimes get it off. Not saying it works every time, but it's a chance, you know. There's your maintenance tip for the day. All right. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to, you know, find something that I could screw this into. I looked for taps. I said, okay, well, I need a 7/16, you know, tap. So what's thread size? Well, these right here are thread gauges. What they do is you put it on it and you match up exactly what the threads are on the nut. And what I did is I went through here and I matched it up and I looked at it and said, oh, it's a 7/16 by 20. Okay, so let me take a look around. And I had no 7/16 by 20 taps. And I'm looking around going, oh, what's this? And I said, this does kind of look familiar, but, you know, where have I seen this before? Then I went through a box and I said, this right here is the bolt for a seat belt. And usually whenever I walk around trying to match up threads, what I do is I take one bolt and another bolt and I put them on each other. And if they slide, they're not the red thread because the threads are not lining up. If they sit there, you put it on and you can't pull them apart, which means the threads are the same. So I went there and I put it on here. And I'm going, wait a minute, holy shit, you know, it's the same thing. So the nut from the bottom of this, from the bottom of that, I went on to this bolt going, well, by bejesus, you know? And I'm looking at it going, wow. So this thing, it could be, you know, let's see, what was the thread pitch? I mean, I also took out the metric gauge and I went out and I looked at it going, well, it's 1.25. So, and it only, you know, it definitely equalizes out because if you take a look, SAE is done by threads per inch. How many times you can turn it to get 1 inch. This one is a by 20, so you have to turn it 20 times to get 1 inch. Well, by 125, how many times does 1.25 go into an inch? 20.4 times? You know, I'm spinning because, you know, you have to remember on metric, it's one turn, it goes 1.25 millimeters. So if you go 10 turns, it's 12.5. 20 turns, it's 25 millimeters. And 25.4 millimeters is what an inch is. So it's pretty close. Now, I'm sitting there going, all right, let me take a look around. And what I came up with is this. I went and got this. You should remember this because I chopped it out of the donor for the Sport Quattro. This is the side pillar, the side rocker for the rusted out 4000 Quattro that I took off the, took the entire pan off and used it on the Sport Quattro. What it is this right here is where the seat belt goes in. And it's about twice the thickness of this nut. So I went there, took the hood pin. We now have our plates to weld in. I'm sitting there going, you know what? I think people should know about that. So if you're building a rally car or a race car or anything and you want a plate that you want to put on for hood pins and you don't want to have two nuts and you just want to have this and then have it basically locked to it after you weld it in, there you go. I'm sitting there going, you know, this is kind of the reason why I didn't throw away all this crap, because I kept this section because of this, you know. All right, first things first, I'm going to cut out this plate, and I have another one down there also that we're going to put the hood pins on. I'm going to weld or tack the plate on there, get it all set up so I can weld the rest of it in. I think it's going to be kind of neat. Let's see what it looks like, you know, after I cut everything up. So let me get my gear on, and we'll just do it up. I think it's kind of neat. So, you know, more hillbilly stuff. Let that cool down, we'll come back and we'll put the headlights around in. All right, I put a headlamp in. You know, this is just in case. You know, you don't want to have, have an empty space right here and then put a headlamp in and find out it moved it a little bit or move these things out. It shouldn't, but just in case. That's the only thing. Now we're going to put the surround on. Why? I'm going to do the driver's side first. The reason is, this fender matches this surround so much nicer than the other side. And I'm going to show you why. Right here, the fender broke. When I pushed this thing down, it snapped right here, and it actually made it fit. So we got to be cutting that one over there to make it fit. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut this proud, and then I'm going to slowly grind it in to meet this, and then we're going to make a mounting system for this side and see if it works. Then we'll go over to the other side because I know I'm going to have to cut, and yeah. Hey, listen, you know, it's all the fun of it. File to fit. All right, let me get my stuff back on. Let me get my grinder, and I'll start cutting this thing up. Well, I have this thing set in. It looks like I have to take the headlamp out and move it backwards because first thing is, this thing is not conforming to this. It needs to be pushed back even further. I thought I had it when I originally just took these bezels and put them in. Yeah, it didn't work. I guess you need to do it a little bit afterwards. So I got to pull this headlamp out. I am going to set this complete so it looks fine, and then I'm going to recut the mounts out, send them back. This is what you get. No, but hey, you're seeing all my mistakes. Jesus. Isn't this a lot of fun? trim ring is on. Oh, the surround. The reflector fell off. It's over there. Yeah, that's what you get for shit parts. Well, at least I know I'm gonna. It was the worst one of the bunch. What I did, I just put a screw in here, put a screw over here. I have not tacked that thing in. I want to get the other side done first, just in case we need to move anything. Right now, I just threw some plates inside here. It's pretty equal. It is hitting right here and hitting right here, and there's a gap right there. So expect that with the fenders. No problem. It looks fairly even on seeing the trim ring. I do have some leeway to move the light around a little bit to make it exact, but I think right now, as you can see, this thing basically floats inside here. If I bring this back just a teeny bit or bring it up, bring the grill up just a little bit, this closes up the gap a little bit right here. What will happen was when this thing is completely painted black, hopefully this will look like part of the grill. That's what I'm shooting for. And I still have to do some more cleanup up here, but I want to get over to the other side first because what happens, it's just like the adjustments on those. If I have to go over there and do that and all this stuff, okay, well, we might as well get the other side done now. So we can I'm going to finish up the episode on that because I know it's going pretty far. But let me go over there and start with the other side, and it's just going to hopefully be just the same thing. You know, it'll be 2 screws holding this thing in. I was going to do something fancy up in here, but the stuff that I was looking at is not going to work. So there we go. All right, and I might put another nut down inside here, you know, to lock it down, to lock this right there. Don't know yet because I got to get the other side done first. We have to make sure this distance is equal on the other side. Okay, let's go over there and let's just start banging that one out. Well, I think I got it fitting pretty well. Here's the edge of the quarter, or the front fender. And we got a huge gap here. On the other one, what we're going to have to do, cut this right here, fold it down. Because you can see it's kind of bulging out right there where you're going to have to cut it. So, handy dandy hacksaw blade. Well, it's kind of worse than I thought. My hacksaw blade did give it some give, but I'm going to have to trim it a little bit because this thing is so far off compared to the other one. I mean, it's really far off. You know, because I was just looking at it, and this is all flat, and this is curved outward like this. I don't love it. You know, I'm just going to have to go up inside here a little bit. Looks like we're going to have to survive with this gap right here. I don't dare cut anymore. It's just making me too nervous. I don't want to really cut into the fenders. I think I'm going to have to live with this the way it is, with this gap. I like the other gap better, but you know, we're going to go with that. One thing I got to do is I'm going to cut these mounts back off. One's right here, one right here. They're not only on with a couple of tacks. I'm going to move it back and see exactly what I can do with this right here, and see where it's going to have to be moved or whatever. So, all right, let me cut these off, put the things back on, and see how far I have to move it back. Actually, let me just grab the light and I'll see how far I have to move it back. Yeah, looks like I have to move it back a little bit. Not much, probably 10 mils maybe. I think I have just enough room to clear this. Let me go grab my cutter. I'll cut these off and I will move it back a little bit. Hits right here. So I got to pull that out so I can push this thing back and modify that. Oh, lots of fun. Looking pretty mean. Well, I gotta have these 4 rings of torture right centered, you know, so we can have that right here. So lets everybody know. All right. Well, we got pretty much here forward accomplished. You know, from there back, we still need to do a bunch of stuff. But I'm happy with it. I mean, it's looking really nice. You know, I mean, everything is starting to set up really well. But remember I said I was going to try and do the entire engine bay, you know, and then go backwards? I can't do that because I have to do the firewall, which means I have to plug a bunch of holes and I have to reinforce it. We'll get to that later. But the thing is, the holes that I don't know where are going to be are the fuel lines and the brake lines. Everything else is pretty much set. I know exactly where it's going to be, but those things, that's the, you know, $1,000,000 question. So what am I going to do is I'm going to go to the back next. We got to finish the entire rear section in the trunk or boot, whatever you want to call it, in that back section, so we can get, you know, all the stuff there set up, ready to go, and then we can run the fuel lines. We know where everything is going to go, and just so we only do it once. Unlike me doing the grill, which I did twice, you know. But yeah, whatever. It's like, yeah, okay, you know, I'm just trying to make it work. But remember, this is, you know, it's step by step, back and forth, you know. And, you know, could I have done it better or faster? I don't know. I don't think so. You know, just because of, you know, you need to have the grill in a certain place, then you adjust it to this, you know. All right, well, you live and learn. But, well, other than that, you know, you can do this. I just pieced it together out of junk and old filing cabinet parts and old car parts, so you can do this. I'm nothing special. I'm just a hillbilly out here in New Hampshire, you know, and just trying to make another crazy Audi. All right. Well, thank you very much for showing up. I really appreciate it. Remember, you can do this. Trust me, you can do this. All right. We'll see you now. Have a great day. Bye.